even breathe in the direction of Moist if I were you, to be honest. I mean, he put his flag on the, he put his stake on this, okay? He was like, oh, enough people on him. It's good enough. It's like obviously not a, it's obviously, no matter how made up a narrative it is, if a clip looks bad enough, then he will go with it. And he will just use these guys. All these guys do is basically farm Reddit for talking points. And Reddit can so easily be botted and manipulated. And I don't think we're ever going to get ahead of that. There's just nothing we can do. Bro, he said you're abusing Kyle. Like, no way. Yeah, I mean, if he thinks that he can suck my dick. Weird how quiet he was about literal certain communities. I mean, it took him 2 years to come out and be like, yeah, the genocide is happening and it's really bad, actually. So Charlie's been on a good streak lately. He genuinely cares about dogs. He talks about how much he cares about dogs in real time. So do I, dumb. That's the reason why I'm off. That's the reason why I'm annoyed. He could just like unironically reach out and be like, hey, what's going on here? Like, what was this about? This clip looks bad. You know what I mean? Hey, Hassan, I know we've been around one another before. We've actually been around one another, and a lot of the people that I know that I'm around all the time and do content with have not only been around you, but also been around Kaya. He could have just hit up, not me, but any number of different people to be like, hey, do you think there's any veracity? Do you think there's any veracity to these claims? Not just like, don't ask me directly. Do your due diligence. Why the f*** you go to Reddit for talking points? What kind of moron are you? It's insane to me that like this is what goes for like doing commentary on the internet is just like, oh, these are the Reddit threads from some of the most like schizophrenic people you've ever actually encountered. This is all it takes for me. He said you hide the bad stuff from your friends? He said I hide. Okay, I'm going to DM him. Gross, moron. All right, whatever.
There are few spaces more merciless than the ones we have built to share ourselves. The internet, with its lights and noise and speed, has become less a forum and more a coliseum, an architecture designed not for conversation, but for spectacle. Inside it, truth is not what can be verified, but what can be felt. Emotion is its currency, its bloodstream, its pulse. In this world, a clip, no longer than a breath, can rewrite the story of a man. The movement of a hand, the pitch of a sound, the startled cry of a dog. Each pixel of it becomes evidence. Each pause becomes a confession. The mob gathers not out of malice alone, but out of a hunger to know, to declare meaning where context cannot reach. It was within this terrain that one man, Hassan, found himself suddenly on trial. Not in a courtroom, but in the unblinking eyes of a million screens. He was known for speaking, loudly, passionately, sometimes rashly, about the world's sins. And when the camera turned on him, when the same machinery that had once amplified his causes turned instead to examine his own hands, he found there was no refuge in the truth, no sanctuary in sincerity. The moment, a sound from his dog, a jolt of misunderstanding, became the opening act of yet another performance. Is how these things go. One person sees a clip, another feels disgust, and the current begins. Before long, a chorus of voices rises, each one carrying not evidence, but certainty. What began as noise becomes accusation. But what made this storm different was not the accusation itself. It was who picked it up, who gave it weight, who spoke it into legitimacy. MoistCr1TiKaL, Charlie to those who followed him, was no stranger to online drama, but had built a reputation as the kind of voice that cut through the noise. He was calm where others raged, steady where others chased views. And so when he turned his gaze toward Hassan when he discussed the viral clip, it felt like something sacred had cracked. Hassan's anger, the kind that vibrates at the edge of disbelief, came not just from being accused of cruelty, but from who had done the accusing, or at least who had believed the accusation enough to repeat it. He had thought there was fraternity in this world of creators, a shared recognition that the internet's chaos could devour anyone. That understanding should have led to grace, or at least to inquiry. But instead, it led to a verdict passed in the court of content. A dog yelps. The sound pierces through the air, a brief, involuntary cry. In a home, that might mean nothing. A startled step, a tug on a collar, a moment forgotten. But online, sound becomes symbol. The clip appeared on social media first, then spread through Reddit, Discord, Twitter, YouTube thumbnails, each iteration adding its own tint, its own gravity. Soon, it was not a sound anymore, it was a statement. The dog's cry became a language for outrage, a cipher through which strangers wrote their own morality. Hassan's relationship with his dog had been shared publicly for years. Viewers had watched the dog grow, had seen him nuzzle against Hassan during long streams. They had seen affection, devotion even. But the thing about the internet is that it forgets kindness the moment it smells blood. To understand Hassan's fury, one must understand how much of himself he had poured into that digital mirror. For years, he had spoken to a faceless audience, building a world out of words, humor, and politics. He had shared his thoughts, his frustrations, his companions. In return, people had built an image of him, sometimes adoring, sometimes hostile, but always consuming. When the viral moment arrived, it collided with that image. People weren't really judging the act, they were judging the idea of Hassan, his tone, his past, his politics, his loudness. In that sense, the clip was never just about the dog. It was about the catharsis of seeing someone powerful, even in a small way, brought low. And then there was Charlie. His commentary, quiet and measured, carried the kind of influence that comes from reputation. He wasn't shouting into the void for clout, he was reasoning, reflecting. But reasoning, in the age of virality, is still participation. To touch the discourse at all is to feed it. Hassan's anger was not just at being seen, but at being seen through someone he thought understood the weight of that gaze. When he spoke, his voice sharp, incredulous, it was not just the voice of a man under fire. It was the voice of someone mourning the loss of trust, of someone realizing that in this digital age, even friendship cannot survive the algorithmic storm. If the internet is a coliseum, then Reddit is its echo chamber. A place where fragments of fact bounce off one another until they take the shape of consensus. Here, narratives do not need to be true to be powerful. They only need to be felt. Hassan called out that machinery, the way talking points rise from the anonymous depths of comment threads and climb their way into the mouths of influencers. He saw it as rot, a kind of intellectual laziness that trades verification for virality. And he is not wrong. Online commentary has become a game of telephone played with stakes far higher than the players realize. Someone misreads a gesture, someone adds a moral framing, and by the time it reaches the front page, the story is no longer about the clip at all. It's about what people want to believe. This, too, is part of a broader phenomenon, the machinery of meaning. The same impulse that drives gossip in a small town now operates on a global scale, accelerated by code and profit. The outrage economy feeds on the illusion of righteousness. Every accusation becomes a product, every act of defense a counterproduct. And within that cycle, no one is fully human. Hassan is not a man with a dog, a home. He is a character, a symbol, a meme. Charlie is not a person with doubts and sympathies. He is a commentator, a judge, a disembodied voice of reason. The dog itself, perhaps the most innocent of all, becomes a prop in this moral theater. The mob does not care about truth. It cares about story. And when story becomes our substitute for truth, we lose something essential, not just in others, but in ourselves. What Hassan saw, perhaps too clearly, is that the very platforms that allow him to speak his mind are the same ones that will one day demand his silence. They are not built for redemption, only repetition. Once the wheel turns, it cannot stop. The same hands that applauded his political insights now point fingers. The same viewers who once saw compassion now see cruelty. It's tempting to call this hypocrisy, but that word implies awareness. What it really is entropy, a slow decay of empathy under the weight of endless consumption. This is the strange intimacy of distance, the way that screens draw us near while keeping us apart. The audience believes it knows Hassan, that by watching him eat, laugh, or shout, they have glimpsed his soul. But what they see is the reflection that the platform allows, a curated sliver of life turned into ritual. When betrayal comes, it feels personal. When disappointment arrives, it feels earned.